Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
in number 5, which is the discussion of the ADA study, in the third line from the bottom of the paragraph, it says, Peter Lennon asked to invite Doug Eastman to the next meeting to discuss how they will address this project. And actually, it should be these projects. So I would, I guess we ought to do these in order. So I would move that those words be added instead of, or substituted these for this, and then add an S at the end of projects. So I'd move that. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Do we need a roll call vote for something like that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great.
I have one abstention, I wasn't here.
Okay, great. Under the number 6 facility condition assessment CIP item, in the third line from the bottom of the first paragraph, it says Peter brought up a concern about entertaining other vendors besides People GIS, and it should be a concern about not entertaining other vendors. And I want to insert,
Where is that, Peter, again? Sorry.
it's under the third line from the bottom of the first paragraph in number 6. It should read, Peter brought up a concern about not entertaining other vendors besides People GIS. And I wanted to add, so insert not before entertaining, and I wanted to add, and that there should be full and open competition for the FCA. Because that was really the discussion. It wasn't concerned about other vendors. It was a concern about making sure there were other vendors besides People GIS. So I would move that we add not before entertaining, and then after People GIS, and that there should be full and open competition for the FCA, period. And then Rob Corson would be the next sentence. I would make those motions. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great.
One
Okay.
abstention.
So moved. Then a motion to, I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the amendment, the amended minutes for January 6, 2022.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great.
One
So,
abstention.
One abstention. Good. All right.
Julie, I have a question about that,
Yep.
if you don't mind. Are you a voting member?
No.
I don't think you have
There
to
you go.
abstain.
Right.
Oh, I abstained because I wasn't here.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a voting member.
But I don't think you're a voting member. I don't know, I'm just curious, just for,
I'll have to look at the mission statement.
because I just sort of thought that from Nico,
That could be.
but then it was a long time ago, so I don't remember.
Takes the weight off of me.
Okay.
Might be nice.
Okay, great. So the next item on the agenda is the ADA study discussion with Doug Eastman and Jeff Beck. And obviously Jeff is here. Jeff, were you going to give us a list of projects, or I don't know whether you've had a chance to talk to Amanda, who's been kind of taking the lead on this.
I just invited him to the meeting.
Okay, great. So can you give us a sort of a status report on what projects, I guess, are the most important projects from the town's perspective, and which ones of and how much they'll cost in fiscal '22 or the next fiscal year? Is that fiscal '22? Yeah.
Yeah.
And whether there's money in the budget for those projects?
There isn't any money in the budget, nothing's been laid aside for '22.
Okay.
Can we,
Aware of.
can we speak in the
I'm
mic?
speaking into the mic.
Yeah, it does, just tell. Speak in the mic, because we are recording it, and they won't be able to hear you at home or on the recording. Thanks.
And just for clarification, we're talking specifically the ADA components.
Right.
I haven't even seen any of the paperwork. I haven't even seen the
the worksheets or any of the things that Dave compiled or anything. I haven't read through any of it. But I do know that for the year 2022, for this fiscal year, there isn't any money, no monies have been set aside for that. So I would say the best way to proceed from my standpoint would be to look at each of the buildings and the deficiencies in the buildings for the ADA, and then prioritize those over the next 2 years, which would be 23 and 24, from my way of thinking. If there's any money left this year from possibly maintenance projects, or if there's a portion of that that's deemed necessary, that we push something else on the projects list back and do that one project because we can afford to do it. I would say that the buildings with the higher foot traffic, like this building, and or the town hall, which has a lot of foot traffic downtown, those would be the two you would want to get done first. So,
Just as a clarification, I think when we talked about this last time, we was noted, one is that there was nothing in the budget, already noted that. And two was we talked about the idea of going through the list, our committee, and actually looking at the items and starting to put together a prioritization of those items, exactly what Jeff's talking about. So I think that was our action item from the last time, which was for us to begin that process. And doing exactly what Jeff said, is to take the buildings and the areas which had the greatest amount of public access to them, and then begin to sort through the list that was the ADA study list, to begin to kind of say these are 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s, or whatever they were.
right, and then if anything pops up that's, this is a glaring defect at this building, and these are the reasons why, then maybe we can push that somehow, push something else out of maintenance projects and push, and do something like that. But as far as I know that in my budget, I don't have any money set aside for this yet, for this year, so.
And nowhere else in the budget either.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Rob, I agree with everything you said, but I thought part of the reason, and correct me, Amanda, I thought part of the reason we wanted to have Jeff here was to see what the town was thinking about what it was going to do and when it was going to do it and when it was going to budget for it. So nothing that you said would preclude Jeff and the town from thinking about the projects and how much they might cost, and where, if they're tasked to do something, where they would recommend the priorities. So maybe it's premature, since Jeff hadn't had a chance to look at the paperwork that's somewhere in between Dave's office and Jeff's office, to get his input, Jeff's input. So, whatever else Jeff can tell us about where things stand, and what kinds of, if there have been any conversations about how to do this in 23 or 24, or even in 2022 with fallout money.
As far as I know, Peter, this is a starting point for us at Public Works and for the maintenance department. This meeting right now would be a starting point for us, and for future considerations. And like I said, I can see for budget year 23-24 that we could set aside money for that or have projects, but the sooner we identify the projects and get cost estimates and contractors lined up, then the sooner we'll have the answers for all of this stuff and be able to put things in the budget for the coming year.
Okay. Hey, Doug, thanks for coming.
So, yeah, just as far as a clarification, Peter, what I was talking about is what we had said in our committee was that we could be an assistance to this by helping to prioritize the items, which would help Jeff and the group to be able to sit there and put together budgets for the subsequent years and to look at where they would be in that thing. So,
Right, I agree. My only question is whether or not the town side of the coin has to wait for us to give them inputs on priorities and other stuff. And if that's what our committee wants, I'm not necessarily going to argue about that or against it. But we're on one path, and we obviously haven't had a chance to do our piece of the puzzle. Does the town stand by and not do anything while it waits for us? Or should the town be already thinking about it in more dollars and cents and timetable perspectives? That's all. And I mean, and then I guess, excuse me, sorry.
Well, so while you're getting a drink here, I think the town should take the lead and we just support as necessary and help them get the project moving along, right? I mean, at the end, it's just projects, or it's the towns that need to put this together, and you know, we have to do what we can if we feel like it's a priority to help push that along, and then you know, and use our committee to help with the town to prioritize. But my question also would be, Jeff, is do you think that these are going to be warrant articles, or are they going to be something that can be
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that right now because we need to get an idea on cost and exactly what we need to do and where it needs to be done.
It's probably a mixture.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Small, depends on the size.
Yeah, some of it may be small, some of it may be easy, some of it may be, we might even be able to do in-house if it's a little bit of concrete work for a small ramp somewhere or at a back door or things like that. I could see that those could be low-cost items that we could hit right now and get done, even if they're not a huge priority, but those things we can do in-house, maybe we can get them done over the building season this coming season. As far as smaller, larger items, we would have to source that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're right. So it depends on the size.
Exactly.
Yeah. So should we, to your point, Rob, should we put this on as a priority for us coming up in the next couple months?
Yeah, that's what I guess my understanding was. That was one of the things we had on there. We were actually going to take that list and use some of our time as a working session to start to go through the list and just be able to look at it and say, is there anything that we could be an assist on to help the community and Jeff and group to be able to sit there and say, here's some items that we looked at and.
Right.
Yeah, well, if we both look at it from that standpoint, meaning Public Works and the Maintenance Department, Highway Department, Jennifer, if we sit down and have a meeting, Jay and I with Jennifer, and look over after we all get a chance to digest that paperwork, we set some priorities and the things that we think we can do, and then we get back together with you guys after you do the same.
Right.
And then we can hash that out.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for our agenda, we just carve out 30 minutes or something and pick buildings and just say we're going to focus as a committee there and do that. I mean, I don't know, it's just something I think we got to force ourselves to do. It's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork.
Okay. Hey, Chris.
Can I ask again, only because I missed a meeting in between, why this isn't considered part of the facilities conditions assessment?
I think it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is data that will end up in that assessment.
Yeah, that's what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And this work actually had been started previous to the assessment, and we thought that this is similar to the other documents that have been done, is that this is all data that actually can be put into and populate the database so that it can be tracked and sorted through as part of conditions assessment.
Yep.
May I ask a question on that as a follow-up? Are we looking to merge? Because right now, let me back up. Part of when we did the evaluation and transition plan, and when we went through all the parks and the public facilities and the downtown public right-of-ways and sidewalks and so forth that we identified for them to do, disability access consultants, they did it and they provided us with DAC software, and they inputted all that into DAC software. And it has the ability to prioritize. It has the ability to set timeframes. It has, and tracking. So it's all built in. It's already in the thing. Folks need to be trained on it. There was a training session that Doug and I attended, but that was like pre-COVID. And then, so what I'm hearing is that you're looking to, you could either use that as a standalone and also have another one, but are you looking to take that information and merge them together into one? Potentially?
I mean, I think ideally you have one place for everything, but I mean, if you already have a software that makes sense to work, I mean, it's just you know, ideally you have one place for everything, right? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at prioritization of projects, you can sort it by ADA, you can sort it by different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
I just got to figure that out and talk to the people, because we have it all in DAC track.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I think it also depends on how easy it is, because from DACTRAC, Doug and I downloaded it into Excel documents.
Right.
And so how easy is that to
Yeah.
get into another
Right.
software? Maybe pretty easy,
Yeah.
since it's not too many columns.
Okay.
It's not a terrible amount of data once it's in an Excel document.
But it's a good question that has to be answered,
Yeah.
Dave, right? I mean, it
And
depends
then
on what solution gets selected by the town for the facility conditioner part of it. I mean, hopefully that's a one that is just very easy to upload data. Because ADA is one thing, but then there might be another report that comes in that you want to do the exact same thing, right? I mean, those are good questions to ask.
And then to further that point, you're gonna have to have,
Some considerations for other areas of buildings and other work planned in these buildings
Yeah.
where it will merge with this, and it may get pushed out more than the next 2 years because, you know, in the third year from now, in 25 or 26, we may be looking at replacing a building, moving, we're working at the safety complex, we're working at DPW, we have a bunch of other projects in line. We don't want to be spending money in those areas that are going to change anyways, where we could include those parts. If there were access issues, just say in those two places, they could be included in the upgrades to those two buildings rather than doing it now and then having to spend money on it again. You know, just consolidating that piece makes more sense to me.
And that's the advantage of having it in one location, right?
Yep.
Because then you can pull to that building, you can start to think about, wow, there's a lot of needs here. And
Exactly.
it's better suited for a bigger renovation than it is
Exactly.
a big part. Yeah, no, I think that's.
Because
And
that's-
ultimately, Jeff, that's really one of the impetuses behind the whole study, is it so that we are looking at and can sit there and, from a tool standpoint, know how much either to invest, when to invest in a piece of property at the right time for the right things. And then if you can combine things together, then ultimately you're not wasting money or wasting your
Exactly.
time, you know, doing things that
Just, you
could be
know,
part of a bigger project.
throwing money away on
Yep.
something that you don't need to be.
Yep, no, definitely.
Real quick, obviously, we're doing the ADA, and Jeff basically said there's no money in the 22 budget unless there's some event, you know, just some fallout money because people either decide that whatever ADA project is more important than whatever's in the 22 budget, or if if a project in the 22 budget falls out on its own, then it's possible to consider whether you could fund ADA, but of course, no commitments. He's focused on looking toward 23 and 24 fiscal years for funding for ADA projects. And you came in as we were discussing how our committee was going to set priorities and work on that. And I think we kind of lean toward maybe taking half an hour out of the next meeting, if it's possible, or presumably the meeting after that, to get into, in a work session, the eaches of the projects in the DAC track. And did I miss anything else to bring Chris up to speed?
Sounds good. Feel free, please keep running it, Peter. I'm happy to have you continue to lead the meeting.
Well,
Thank you.
it's nothing. Yeah, okay, can I, Amanda, you?
I think you have someone to say that.
The question I had, Peter, was, would it be possible for Dave to get the program from the company as they have it prioritized and start from there? Because we already have that not prioritized.
No,
No.
they don't set our priorities.
I know, but I'm just wondering what,
It's all in there, and then the priority is not, there's a priority like a rank, I forget how it is, 1 through 5 or something
Okay.
like that, and we choose.
We choose that.
that and
That's the
click on,
priority.
correct.
And hopefully that'll be a collaborative effort between our committee and the town staff, using the DAC track database. Can I ask,
No,
may I, Doug, can I ask where, okay.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, I mean, you're the Stuckey in the report, right? I mean, technically speaking, you're the the ADA point of contact or coordinator, or I don't know what the exact words are, but it's in there, and it used to be Chief Kane, and obviously he's gone, and so it's now in your office.
Yes.
How does it work between you and Jeff, or you and DPW, in terms of pushing for the money and setting the priorities? And so I'm trying to get a sense as to who's the real champion in the town government for this kind of work. Are you supposed to be it, or is it?
I think, I'm not sure. I mean, we really haven't dealt with this over the past few years for obvious reasons, but I would say, I mean, I basically will act on complaints or things that I might see or somebody else may see, and then I just will bring it to Jeff of Public Works, and, you know, try to get it resolved without, you know, within the budget that we have going on now. So, but I guess, you know, as far as that's the way it's been going on, Peter, you know, so.
It sounds to me like it's more of a collaborative effort amongst the people that are either going to do the work or observe the necessities. And it's a matter of having one person that speaks for the three of you, something like that.
And that's what we're trying, that's a great question, Peter, because that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Just how it went was, a few years back, there were a couple, you know, access issues, accessibility issues raised by some public on, you know, downtown. And we're like, oh, okay, where's our evaluation plan? The American Disabilities Act requires that you do an evaluation and then a transition plan. And upon my findings, we hadn't done that. We didn't have that. So we put together a warrant article, I think in, 17, 18, whatever it was, you know, we put together a warrant article to fund, and it also was it was put forward as a oh, what am I missing? A fund. Why is that escaping me?
Capital improvement?
Yeah, capital reserve fund. A capital reserve fund for $35,000. That made it through the budget process, but then the select board took out the capital reserve fund part and just put it as a $35,000. So we never got the, you know, we did the study for 19.4, but the 15.6 that we would have had extra from implementation kind of, you know, went back to the general fund because we didn't do a capital reserve. It didn't go on the warrant as such. So then we did and then we're like, okay, now we have the evaluation plan, the transition plan done. Now the next step is implementation. And then COVID hit and kind of, everything kind of went sideways. And then, you know, with the help and, you know, Amanda mentioned and so forth, like, okay, now let's focus on implementation. Who's doing it? He has the ADA coordinator title, but we have not figured out, Peter, that's what we're trying to do right now, to establish who's going to do what, how it's going to be prioritized, and how we're going to implement the work. That's where we're at.
Julie, I agree with you. It has to be collaborative. And I'm going to assume, since at least these three guys that we know all work well together, that's going to be the case. But I just want to know, the reason I'm pushing on this is that in my experience, good or bad, unless there's somebody that feels that that's a major part of his or her responsibility, it kind of gets second, you know, shrift. And all three of these guys are busy as heck. And so I just, again, so I would urge, you know, Dave and Doug and Jeff to figure out as soon as you can who's going to actually be the proponent for this, so that in the near future it no longer is a second priority for whatever reasons it was. And I'm not saying they're bad reasons, but now we've done that. The money that you did 19,000, you had 35, and you put the rest of the money back in the general fund. Has that money expired?
Yeah. It goes into fund balance, you know, that's how we get fund balance. So if it's not a capital reserve, it doesn't transfer over. So it just goes back into the fund balance, and that's how it was set up. So
So is there that amount of money in the fund balance that if we wanted to jumpstart in '22, any of this ADA work?
Well, it's up to the select board. Yeah, there's money in the fund balance, but it's up to the select board to
it's the general
determine
fund.
what to
It's
use
not
it.
Yeah, I understand.
A lot of times it's off to offset the tax rate or,
Yeah,
other
sure.
things, so.
Well, but even if they use X amount of that money for the tax rate, there's $16,000, if I did my math right, that you didn't need out of the 35, because you spent 19.
19.4, yeah, 15.6.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But whatever.
exactly.
So is it reasonable to then go to the select board and say, hey, in this fund balance is some amount of money, $16,000, that originally was ADA intended and has now been returned, but could be available if you make it available to jumpstart ADA work?
I think that would be
Theoretically.
more a question for Julie than me.
Well, theoretically, yes. Well, what the select board typically does at the end of the year is look at our general fund balance, and we take out, we have to leave a certain amount for the first 3 months or 2 months of the year, because we don't vote on the budget till March. But we always set aside some to just offset the tax rate.
Right.
And so this year it's 800,000. So to ask for us to let us use that 16 or whatever was left over, well, it's no longer earmarked for that purpose.
I understand that. I guess the question is, and I don't know whether I want to make a motion about it, if between the set aside for the first 3 months and the 800,000 for reducing the tax rate, there's an amount left over in that fund balance that's more than $16,000.
Right, and you'll see that on the town warrant, where we use some of those funds to pay for something we're doing, so it doesn't affect the tax rate.
Right.
So we just have to ask next year.
Well, no, hear me out. I think we should ask you as the select board representative to see whether or not there's any fallout money now.
Sure.
After you take into account all those other legitimate purposes. I'm not saying take it out of the other legitimate purposes. I'm just saying, is there, should we consider asking the select board formally to find that $16,000 if it exists? And I know it doesn't exist with a tail number on it that says ADA compliance or ADA projects, but theoretically, whatever's left over, if it's more than $16,000, and everything else that the select board thinks needs to be done is being done, I think it might be worth asking the select board to use that money for that purpose in '22.
So Peter, we don't, again, from a step standpoint, what would we propose to use the $19,000 for?
That's $16,000.
Whatever the value is, what would we use it for?
If we can't get our act together to establish $16,000 worth of priority projects working as the FAC with Jeff and Doug and Dave, then we're not as either committed to doing what we should be.
Let's forget the commentary. Let's go into
No, here it is. Hear me out. If we can't find $16,000 worth of worthy projects in fiscal '22 that could use the money if it was available, then we're not doing our job and they're not doing their job. So asking the select board to consider allocating that amount of money on a TBD basis that says we will fill in the blanks with Jeff and Doug and Dave later on, I don't think that's unreasonable, because the worst that happens is we don't fill in, we don't come up with those projects, and the money stays in the fund. But
Are you saying 16,000 because of the delta from
yeah,
35?
yeah, that's all.
Are we locked into that delta from 35, Julie?
We're not looked into anything.
Yeah, so why don't we just say we feel like that?
It's what
So I mean, to me, it's like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Peter, let's get something going.
Yeah.
But I would say if we knew what our priorities are, maybe it's 25, let's say, let's go after 25, you know what I mean? So,
Sure.
And that goes on a warrant article.
oh, because it's 25?
Yeah.
24.
Yeah,
24.
yeah, make it 24.
24.
24, no,
But
Oh, again, look,
I understand what you're saying, but I get it, I was just, you asked my question, that's fine.
and I think the commentary is valid, Rob, because I think it's a challenge to us to be part of the solution in the same way it's a challenge to the town to be part of the solution. That's all.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. What I would like to say is that if we would start on the process, Peter, and then have an impetus to say that we've started on the process, we've come through and we've identified the potential for being able to add things to the 2022 project list. That one is we've got a commitment from the town that they have the resources to do it with COVID and all the other things that are going on, and that it can be done within this time period, and that all the other resources they have to bear to get it done are legitimate versus going to the board and saying, by the way, we've got this idea that we'd like to pull back some money from this. We have no idea what we're asking for, but we'd like to pull some money back. So
Now, yeah, I understand that. We're talking chicken and the egg. And I don't think that if we go to ask the select board to consider allocating some amount of money for FY22, the fact that we don't have these specific projects right now, when we are likely to have those specific projects by the time the FY22 budget is partway accomplished, I don't think it's a bad idea just to ask the select board whether they would be willing to consider allocating some money out of that fund for fiscal '22, whatever the number is that we will come up with as a set of legitimate projects or whatever. That's all.
Well, I'll tell you what I think the response would be, that we're voting on this facilities conditions assessment. Why would we go ahead and do something that we don't know yet where it is in the priority list?
Well, because we could say, A, we know based on the DAC track data and the report that there's a boatload of projects, small, big, that are, what's the word, potential. And B, it ought to be a fairly straightforward process to figure out where we can usefully use a certain amount of money without precluding any of the kinds of priority setting efforts that we hope to get out of the facilities condition assessment. Because we're not going to come up with taking down the whole, I'm going to overstate it. You pick a big wide project and somebody says, let's do a bunch of ADA stuff at 32 Court Street. And then somebody's going to say, well, wait, why should we do that? Because we may be out of 32 Court Street. I'm not talking about that stuff. Okay, there's the projects that are listed are big and small. And I can't believe we can't find smaller projects that are still good to do and we still know we need to do regardless of what's in the facilities condition assessment. That's all. Using the facilities condition assessment, and Julie, I know you don't mean it this way, but I don't think since this has sort of been hanging in Never Never Land or in limbo for at least a couple, 3 years, I don't think we should use the facilities condition assessment as a reason to unnecessarily delay some of those projects. Again, there's always, you can put the criteria together so that they're not imprudent, they're not foreclosing. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
No, and I'll just tell you the budget's set and there it is.
I understand that.
So we're all set for FY20, we can't do this for FY22, or?
I don't think so, no.
Because there's not going to be any money left over after you do the 800,000 and after you do the other funding that you use to reduce the other parts of the tax rate. There's not 16,000, I'm just pulling that out.
Yeah.
There's not any money that you couldn't find in the fund, that, you didn't take that fund to zero, did you?
No,
You took that fund to, did you take that fund down to the absolute minimum of what you
it's
deem you
it's
have to
recommended,
have?
yeah, it's what's recommended by the Department of Revenue Administration.
Okay, well, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then there is no money available.
Right.
Well, I mean, it could be, this discussion could happen a year from now, or 9 months from now.
Right, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, your overall point, Peter, is good. There's opportunities here to maybe to get some money allocated that is, to Jeff's point, maybe there's some at the end of the year, maybe, and so it's a good idea to bring up that if we can't make it to the warrant article process, that maybe there's opportunities there.
Just keep me on a tickler list of things you might want to look at.
Okay.
But I would just make emphasize, I guess, the point that we need to jump in and help with in our opinion, the prioritization of these to see if they do rate up to the high. I mean, to your point, Jeff, you said that maybe there's something on your list that could be bumped a little bit if something like this came up as like we really need to take care of this, if it's a safety issue, an ADA issue. So, I mean, you guys just haven't had a chance to digest this like we have, and so.
Great.
May I recommend just one thing about this half hour that you're gonna set aside? Maybe I'd recommend that, Doug in coordination with Jeff could, and I just talked to Doug about this, he's okay with it, go through DAC, give it a first shot at the priorities, and then bring them to you so you have something to review and edit, then to create. So I think it'll be, maybe a little bit easier.
More efficient, yeah.
Is that all right? Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll work and get that done.
Do you all have that information?
Hopefully.
Okay, so
I don't. I'm new to it.
Yeah.
Dave, could you say that?
The report is, go ahead.
Just, could you try to repeat what you just said so I can?
Just, the half hour, to make the half hour the best spent, we'll go through it and see if we can, see what, because there's costs in there too. I mean, everything's included. They might be a little dated, obviously. Everything's dated almost a week old now, but we'll go through it. We'll give it our, best shot where what we see the opportunities and the priorities are, and bring that to you, and you can review and edit that document. Then sit there and go through every one and create a priority number on it. And then we can send it to you in advance of the meeting so you can absorb it and come, and we can get the most out of the half hour.
Great.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else on the ADA study and the DAC track data? Great.
that's good.
Thank you, Doug and Jeff, and Dave, of course. We'll stand by to hear from you, and then you'll hear from us.
I'm gonna need ADA after next Monday when I have my knee surgery.
Hopefully not.
No, I have to. There's no escaping it, no.
They're gonna put your office on the first floor for you after that, or?
We got an elevator.
Oh, okay, good.
Might as well use it.
Hey guys, do me a favor on your way out and check if the second button for the door works, because I don't think it does. It's not on the list.
Second, the automatic?
The automatic
The
door, I don't think
accessibility
the second
button?
one works.
Push it to see if the door opens?
All right, it's not on the list though.
So it takes break.
It might have worked when they did the
It might have worked
walkthrough.
back then.
Yeah, right.
So you're probably looking out here, just to give you an example, looking out here at the hallway, you see 4 dots on the wall. 6 weeks ago, I recommended that there be a handrail on there, which commercial building should have a handrail on both sides.
Yeah.
Those 6 weeks. We're still not there.
That's the search for structure.
Oh, so one step at a time, they cut holes and then.
Some research, and there's actually have to attach handrails.
I got you, okay.
So we kind of work.
Yeah.
And the handrails have to be at
They
the
both
right
work.
height. So
Okay. How do you get it to work?
chasing dirty spots.
Yeah.
What? Very awesome, man.
That's a quick question then, Dave.
Test those buttons.
Dave or Doug, like, when Rob talks about resources, like, if there is money, how does that get allocated to get the project done? Is it spent internally on staff, or is it to hire outside contractors?
Probably more outside.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it depends on the job.
Yeah.
We have staff, but some of these internal projects, we have staff, so we're paying them anyways. I suppose if there was extensive amount of materials to do the project, what we did in-house, so you still have to pull that money from there. You know, $5,000 worth of materials to accomplish. So it would just be materials and not labor.
Yeah, and that decision is made by each department head. They get their budget approved, say it's $30,000 to do maintenance. Then they determine what they can do in-house, do they just spend it on materials, or we're gonna contract this out. It's really up to them. It's just they have up to the budgeted amount to spend on whatever line item it is.
Is there any grant money available or anything like that, or any state money for something like this, for the ADA improvements, or?
No.
I'm just wondering, as far as, I mean, it's always an issue with old public buildings, right, to do this, so I didn't know if there was.
There very well could be. I'll look into that. I mean, I wouldn't think a lot of the smaller projects, it's worth to go through the paperwork. Davis-Bacon Act, then you have to pay people, the federal wage requirements and all those steps if you get a grant. But definitely for the bigger, because there's some big ticket items in there, so definitely I'll keep.
Even if you could just get a fund source of 100,000 that you can use as you wanted, right? I get it, yeah.
Take a look at that.
Should do a capital reserve fund.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we're on to old business. Over to you.
Over to me?
Yeah.
I was happy with what you were doing.
Zoning.
I like not running the meeting once in a while. So the first item on old business is facility asset management, or facility condition assessment type stuff. So the update I have on that is I will be attending the deliberative session on Saturday, just to be there, to be available to speak to our warrant article item for the FCA. Russ gave me the window when he thinks that topic will likely come up. So I'll be there for that.
And I will be introducing it.
Oh, good.
And I can use actually the slide deck that you gave the select board, which covers pretty much all of it, so you may not have to speak at all.
Good. That's great. Thank you, Julie. And Russ sent me the text of the description of the item that is included in the ballot, and it's very technical, so I'm hopeful that it doesn't bog people down too much. I mean, he gave me the chance to edit it. It looked okay as it was, and I wasn't going to do a big rewrite of it. It's very technical, but so far I've been pleased with how people seem to grasp the concept of it and what it does. So, and then after that, through the deliberative session, then it goes to the vote, and then we'll know more after that. I don't know if anybody had any more comments on that.
No?
Fingers crossed, hopefully it passes Saturday and on the ballot. Next one is the public safety complex study. Dave, I don't know if you have much on that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I have a little bit to add. I got a memo over to Russ the other day with several attachments that included the several deliverables in the RFQ scope of work, and it was a needs and programming assessment for the fire department, a needs and programming assessment on the police department, an evaluation of the site options, and order of magnitude of costs on 3 of the options that LaValle Brensinger says at this point, based on their site concept analysis, that are the 3 most feasible. So now we're ready to bring it to the first public forum, and you folks, I worked with you, Mr. Chairman, we're going to do February 17th at 4:30, and we're going to have that. But I will get you all that information. We just finished reviewing it this week internally, and I got the okay from Russ. I'm going to send it to you folks tomorrow. So I'll give you those attachments. It's, you'll see what they are, read them all. We're going to advertise. We're going to get a web page together on our website for the public safety complex, where we're going to post the documents I'm going to share with you tomorrow and anything else. I know the police, I think fire too, or both, are working on a video to kind of go through a virtual tour of the buildings, kind of to establish, the existing conditions and, kind of the why of why this is needed, and they'll play that. And on the 17th, LaValle Brensinger will come and present to you and their documents that you'll have had a chance a couple weeks to review, and then we'll be, have a open Q&A on the 17th.
Open Q&A from us or from the public?
From you folks and any public that shows. We'd like the public to come. We'll target a couple people that we know have been interested, but we're also going to notice the meeting and so forth and encourage folks, whoever wants to come, but it's your meeting, but, let's hear from the public as well if there is any.
Yeah, I'd encourage anyone to come.
So the contract, so this is part of the contracted effort by LaValle Brensinger, right?
Correct.
So, okay. I guess I have a couple questions. So we're going to do it here,
Yes.
and we're going to do it at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday when most people are at work. So I don't know if that really represents the kind of public orientation, whatever, explanation, whatever we contemplated as part of the public interface for this and as a way to build support for the project. I defer to you all, but it would seem to me that we should consider it being done at a time when more people in the town are available to attend, and do it in a place where it's more accessible to more people in the town. If this is going to be one of those public sessions.
Well, I guess that's the question, right? Is this considered one of the public sessions?
Well, we've got a few of them, so but that's a great question, because we can't do it that night at 7, because the meeting's booked at 7, so this was going to be 4:30 to 6:30. But you're right, I mean, we deal with that all the time during the master plan. When do you get the most, input, and when can people be available? But it was one of the contracted meetings. Yes.
So then the question is, should it be, I don't know what's available. I mean, I don't know if the high school auditorium is available where we normally have the deliberative session. I don't know whether the town hall is available. But I think we need to consider it not, if it's part of the contractual public relations campaign that we've been pushing. I think we really need to consider that it not be at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday in a really small room such as this. A. B. Dave, is this stuff that you're sending to us, is it contemplated to be, when are you going to put it on the website?
Oh, right away.
Okay, if you're going to put it on the website right away, then I would seriously urge you to call Alexander Lacasa and Pat Cronin, his editor.
Well, Alexander doesn't work.
Alexander's no longer.
See?
Yeah.
I'm late.
We know who, yeah.
Okay, you know who.
Yeah.
And get it into the Exeter newsletter as a story.
They've already done one story already, right?
Yeah.
A while ago about this coming, so this isn't the first time, so they didn't, so this will be a follow-up.
Yeah, but this has the, this has a lot of important information.
No, I'm agreeing with you, this is a follow-up, this is like a second article on the project.
How many of these public meetings do you need to have?
I'd have to look at the scope of work. There's at least 3, 2 quote unquote public forums, but then committee meetings and boards. So we have flexibility too, as we built in, we got more money than, we negotiated down and we have extra, so, but I think contractually, there's at least 2 public forums and a couple of board meetings.
So, so I would hope that this, I guess I was thinking this was not one of your public forum sessions, that this is more for us to help with the process and maybe give some feedback.
I can do that. I just wouldn't want to, and then we can do that, I'll talk to LBA. I don't think that that's much of an issue. I just wanted, I know there's some people interested in it that might want to speak at the 17th, so I didn't want to give that up. And say you can't come, or, I'd like to hear as much, we'd like to get as much input early and often, and then after that first meeting, then we can strategize and put out, someone mentioned a survey too, and I already contacted RPC on using their publicinput.com survey that pushes out things pretty well, but we'd have to craft what the questions are and so forth, but I thought we'd have that first meeting, so I can definitely do that, but if you'd prefer, what date and time would you think would be more viable?
And remember, if we start out here, we can do a hybrid version, so people don't actually have to come down here. We get a lot of participation that way, actually.
Yeah. If it's online as well, you mean, Julie?
Yeah, you can zoom in and we see your name up there on the screen.
Yeah, this all started just because they volunteered to present to us, which we were wholeheartily embracing, and then we just slotted them into a future meeting. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I guess I took it was more like a work section in a way. It wasn't like a formal, you present to us. Right. I thought that we'd be like more we could walk through with them and
yeah, because
I guess that's what I was thinking, but I understand where you're coming from, Dave, as far as
Either way, I wanted it to be a presentation because it's recorded.
Yeah.
And it's out there, and I wanted it to be a nice presentation for you folks and for the public that's watching it. So kind of we started to give a little background, go into it, go all to what we've done, and then open it up for comments, and I figured it would mostly be discussion with you, but I didn't want to miss that opportunity to.
Our meetings are public anyway, so it's not,
exactly.
You can't keep anybody out.
Could you treat it as a draft? Like this is like you're presenting to us as a draft in preparation of doing it again at a much larger forum or setting?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just don't want you to waste, one of the public forums on us where you'd have an opportunity to get a much bigger, and, like to your point, Peter, as far as with the timing and stuff. And I don't know, something for you to think about, I guess. But I still look forward to us being involved, so I don't want to cancel that.
Yeah, we'll figure. Point well taken. I'll talk to LBA. We'll figure it out. But we don't want to pass up the opportunity to present to you, and we don't want to pass up the opportunity if anybody wants to come and has comments. We'd be happy to hear them.
Well, I guess we could have a public segment of our meeting. We could ask after they brief, and then after we've had comments, we can open the floor up to the public, whether they do it through Zoom or they're sitting here.
Right.
How long do you think that LaValle Brenziger is going to, and I know it depends on how many questions we have, and I'll behave myself, sort of. But how long do you think? Yeah.
I would guess
that in the minutes.
Yeah. I swear. I sort of promise.
Yeah. I've roughed out the presentation outline of what we're going to do. The video, establish a little background, establish the need, play the video, and then LaValle Brenziger is going to kind of go through the options. So I would think our, total, no more than 30 minutes for that. And then however long the discussion is, so say an hour to 90 minutes. But we do have 4:30 to 6:30. We could say at 6 o'clock, 6 to 6:30, public comment or something like that.
Just because I just did you're talking about the fire department, the PD, right?
Yeah.
So the fire department, when I just did a first go at it, it's like 17 minutes long.
17?
Yeah.
Well, I revised that statement then. I didn't know it was going to be 17 minutes.
The PD one will be shorter. He gave a lot of verbiage in the front, I'll just say, about a little bit of history and stuff, and then it's a really slow tour of every room, basically.
Well, that one they wouldn't have to present at our meeting necessarily.
Maybe we cut that down. You've all done that.
Yeah. We've been to the site.
We don't need to see it.
A number of times.
Yeah. Duly noted.
Get that feedback maybe to Dave, and then we can get that to the
Yep.
sheets, and then I can go back and rework
Yeah.
the video.
Well, I mean, it can be as long as you want. It just, I think it should live on a website. We don't have to sit through it when they present to us, because
Yeah.
we're familiar with the need and,
I would still make it as short as you can on the website.
yeah.
You're not gonna get people to watch it.
People's attention span these days.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
See you, Doug?
There you go, exactly. We'll talk with the chiefs, maybe, I think we'll mention it, exists, maybe throw up a link on the, on the website of where to view it, and won't, sit and play it for you folks, or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the best bet to drive participation too is, like Julie mentioned, is to have the hybrid meeting. Maybe another time might be better. I'm not sure if we go to a bigger venue, if we're going to get a lot more people in person attending. I honestly don't know.
So I think, I'm going to go back to what we had put into the original document, which ultimately, if I'm going to summarize this next one would be more of a working session with the facilities committee to look at where we're going, kind of the update of what's happening. What we originally put was really two major public meetings, one kind of public meeting to kind of give the overall, here's what's the assessment of all the properties that we're looking at, here's the assessment of what the needs are for the groups. And that was one kind of like in the beginning of the summer. And then we had another one which was just before, it was a fall presentation, just before the voting, so that we could do a repeat with the idea of that now you have cost estimating, you have here's the properties, here's the rating system on what these properties are, here's why that we're selecting these, and here's the cost estimating, so that brings people into the voting season and ropes all of the budget committee and everybody else together as the kind of the rounding up for a 2023 vote.
yeah, I got no issue with that. I thought I heard there was questions on the committee we discussed, when do you get in the public, and the earlier the better, so that.
Oh, yeah, no,
Need earlier, but a reminder too.
No, understood, but I was like, before we get too far, and I thought but the public will be informed, it is gonna be noticed, we will have a website.
So I was the one who brought that up, and I'll just do, what I was talking about at that time was the weeding out of options prior to the public being involved in the decision. So the discussion we had last time was that there was already a pre-prescribed attitude towards what properties were going to be selected and which ones were not going to be selected. That was my interpretation.
Yeah.
So my thought was that before we make decisions as a group, we let the public understand all the things that are into the question. So if in fact the community said that they wanted to have something downtown, this is what I stated last time.
Yeah.
If they wanted something downtown, that limits the options and it makes us have to think about being more creative about the selection and the use of the parcels that we currently have that are available downtown. That's a community decision, as far as I'm concerned, not a decision by either the fire chief, the police chief, or the consultants that are brought up. I'm not sure whether everybody else.
No, I agree.
Everybody agrees with. That's an
important step to get feedback.
That's the important step.
Yeah, there are factors that you'll see in the paperwork about, the pros and cons to all that they look at that. But that's what I thought this, meeting would be for.
Yep.
They do recommend, you'll see, but it's, they do. But that's just, it is something to get somewhere to start the discussion.
Right.
But as I said, it's, we're waiting to go to you folks and to the public and see, and we have availability. It's in its infancy right now. It's just preliminary conceptual site testing, and you'll see the site tests and the site fits to what they came up, and sometimes they just say it's just not feasible unless you want to spend more money and go up and start going vertical and so forth and that sort of thing. But they have that information. They'll be able to address that.
All right, so we're scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight at 4:30. Do we want to revisit that or just move forward with that?
I propose to move forward with it.
And we'll do the hybrid. What are ways to notify the public that this is happening? Like, Obviously, we post our meetings to the town website and, there's no attendance, so. It's not getting out there very much.
It's not a popular town.
Well, I think one of the best things that's worked, you can do all the you put it in the paper, you do a press release, might get in Exeter newsletter, you ship it out to all the boards and, committees in towns, because we have an email list on that. You kind of push it out that way. But I think one of the best methods is I know at least several people that are interested in this topic, and I go out and specifically, and I would ask all you folks to do this, you infiltrate the neighborhoods and so forth, and the people that are interested, and just try to generate some interest to have people come. Because it's always a challenge, usually meetings, if you can get 40 people there, that's a success.
So one of the other things that we don't take advantage of, I think, enough is how many people actually watch Channel 22. I don't know how many hours a week that they catch it.
Yeah.
But having a commercial like between meetings instead of that, dead screen that says select board will meet in 5 minutes or something like that.
That's a good idea.
It's also, doesn't it get, this is broadcast on Facebook too, right? Well, you can watch it on Facebook.
Yes.
So I think it does get, somehow it gets out there that this is coming up on Facebook or something like that, right?
Yep.
Meeting.
Yeah.
And, it is recorded and you can go back, people can watch it pretty easily now, right? You don't have to watch the whole thing, you can fast forward, you can do a bunch
Or
of
you
different
can
things.
play it at 1.5 speed or whatever.
Yeah, so,
There's an Exeter Community Forum as well on Facebook. Is that worth any?
That is run by a resident, totally, it's nothing to do with the town.
Right.
You can put something on there if you want, but it's going to get responded to, and we're not going to know what the responses are.
Oh, good.
But in terms of an advertising place.
Yeah.
yeah.
When Exeter TV posts something into there, it doesn't get a lot of traction, but if there's something in Seacoast Online and then that gets posted into there, it gets a ton of traction, especially this project gets a lot of traction in there. There are a lot of people saying a lot of things. I follow it.
That really means,
Yes.
people say a lot of things for sure.
so what that really
Well,
means.
that's where all the people with opinions are, I'll tell you.
For good or bad.
Get one positive.
So that really means
We
that,
say we want to get to the public.
Yeah,
That's probably the avenue.
yeah. So that really means it's important for you guys to have a press strategy that gets that stuff into Seacoast Online, which is that's the website for the Portsmouth Herald, the Exeter newsletter, and all
Yeah.
of those.
Yeah, if it gets there, everybody will get it.
That's, we can provide it to them, but then they have the choice of running it or not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it'd be great to have as many people live, and like, I think a lot of people would tune in remotely to something like that, and then if it's recorded as well, that's even better. I just want everybody to see La Valley's first presentation and what they're offering. Okay.
Is there still the communications committee? Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know who's the select board.
Okay.
I think it might be Nico. I don't know. They're not as active as they were
Okay.
a couple of years ago.
All right, does anybody have anything else on that? Otherwise, we're
Nope.
past our allotted time, and I've got to run, so.
Did you have some question for the?
I'll talk offline with you.
Move adjourned.
I'll second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Great.
Motion passed, that's
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.